top 10 books of 2026 so far. Let's go. Hey everyone, Fini here from Fini Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. I know I'm late to the party, but I wanted to share my top 10 books, 10 of the year so far with you. This year has been kind of a weird reading month. I've been reading a lot less than typically. I've DNF'd a lot already over the year. So finding 10 books was a little bit interesting, but I love my selection. I'm excited to talk with you about them. Starting with Firebird by Juliet Cross, which is a book that got me out of a kind of weird reading slump last month, which is why it's on the list. Not because it's the best book I've ever read or anything, but just for the fact that it single-handedly got me out of the reading slump, and I'm very grateful for that. This is a Roman-inspired romantasy, which is yet another reason why it is on my top list, because I think this story incorporated like actual Roman history pretty well while keeping it unique and making its own. This is about Melina, who is a dancer in a small village far away from Rome, but one day Rome is attacking her village, killing a bunch of people and capturing her, and she ends up being the slave of Julian, who is a dragon shapeshifter, because in this alternative version of Rome, all the emperors and high up people are all dragon shapeshifters. Even though she is a slave, this is actually not really a slave master relationship. He is treating her very well, giving her a bunch of freedoms, and well, falling for her. I don't think that is a huge spoiler at all, and trying to convince her that, you know, he is the right dude for her as well. Number 9 on my list is River City Widow by Teresa Halvorsen. This is kind of a cozy horror. Is that a category? If it would be, this would fall under it, I believe. This is a very entertaining, relatively short horror story. It's a haunted house. It's a single mother who is living with her son in that single house, and then the daughter, who is not her daughter but her stepdaughter technically, is also moving in. She's kind of fleeing from college, and then all of a sudden there's a ghost, and they're trying to figure out if it's a nice ghost or not so nice. A lot of pop culture references in here. I will not spoil any of those because I thought that was kind of the fun of the story as well, figuring out what horror pop culture moments are represented in this story. A lot of really fun characters, quirky, entertaining, and even though it's a horror, this scaredy cat here could deal with that haunted house very, very well. Book number 8 is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, which is a literary sci-fi, I guess, literary dystopian story. Originally, after I read it, I put it down and was like, yeah, that was okay. It was a fun read, but the longer, like the more weeks pass, the more I keep thinking about this book, and there are moments where scenes of the books just come back to mind, and I'm like, this book is actually not that bad. It's actually, you know, it's one of those that lingers with you, if that makes sense. This is about a group of women that were held in a bunker. They were not allowed to go anywhere. They only know that bunker, essentially. There are a bunch of restrictions that they have to deal with, and then one day, all of a sudden, all the men disappear, and luckily for them, one of the men was about to open the door and bring the food in, so the door is open, but the men are all gone, and slowly they're coming out of their bunker and, you know, dealing with life how it is outside of that bunker. It is definitely a literary story. There are a lot of like hidden meaning type of things in the book that I never get. I'm dense for these types of things. But even if you're not someone who finds all these little, you know, between the lines type meanings, it definitely has some interesting moments, because one of the women has never lived outside those walls. The rest have, and remember like bits and pieces of how life was before then and how things functioned in the world before then. And it's kind of a very interesting interaction of a woman who has never known anything else other than that, how she deals with certain life situation compared to the others. So again, thought-provoking elements, and because of that, I had to added to the list. Book 7 on my list, another horror. This one, a very creepy, vibey kind of horror. In particular, I am talking about book 2 in the Nightmare Chronicles, which is Lullaby by Daniel Burnett. I reread book 1. I read it years ago. Reread it again because I wanted to continue with the series, because he's coming out with this wonderful omnibus edition. So I wanted to finally finish this first arc of the Nightmare Chronicles. And even even though I still don't fully know what's going on, which I think is actually by design for that story, to be very fair, just for the vibe and for the creepiness and for the ambiance, I am loving this horror story. So just in case you don't know, this is set in a world where the sun all of a sudden didn't come up anymore from one day of another, so everything is dark and people are going crazy and everybody is dealing with the situation very differently. And the audiobook in particular pulls out some of this weirdness and this craziness really, really well, with different voices, sometimes whispers and sometimes louder voices, sometimes like these crazy manic voices. And it's so well done, and I'm so excited to continue with that series, no matter if written or via audiobook, and see where it is actually going, because there's definitely a lot more than you realize in the first two books. And even though I don't know where this is going or what direction this horror story is taking, I know it's something very different than what you might assume based off of book 1 and 2. I hope I'll finish this out actually this year still, so that I get to the other novellas and the big novel at the very end before the year ends. On 6th spot, another glary book, Knife's Edge by Matthew Wolfe, which is book 1 in the Ronin saga. This is a medieval-inspired world where you have 9 Ronin that are kind of godlike beings, each with their unique magical ability. Simple things like can control water or wind, and then more complicated things like can manipulate your mind and that kind of stuff. While this has some rather traditional Tolkien-esque inspiration, there are a lot of unique elements that I really, really loved in this story. This book is about Gray, who's a young adult. He forgot everything that happened in his younger years. He lives with kind of an older mentor character in the woods, and one night they're being attacked and they have to run for their life. And this story is like, the first half is about them running and, going to the place they're going, trying to not spoil anything here. And then they're meeting a bunch of folks, and it's really a setup book. Like, it's kind of setting up the scene, the world, like what it is all about, the characters that play a role in it. At least that's what it feels like at this point. But it is really well done. There's enough action in there. There's some quirky characters that you get to meet. There's a Harry Potter-like trio that is playing an essential role in the series. And it's just a lot of fun. Very entertaining, quick read, fantastic story, especially given that it is like 13 years old at this point. It's holding up really well. We're kicking off the top 5 with a mystery novel. Not a fantasy or sci-fi or horror, my only mystery novel in the list. Malice by Keigo Higashino. This is a Japanese mystery. It's a translated book. This is about Detective Kaga, who is trying to solve the mystery of a dead person by getting close to a friend of the dead person, who initially is very, very helpful in providing information about what happened during that day and that kind of stuff. What I thought was interesting about this is not your typical like thriller, high-paced action type story. It is rather quiet, actually, very dialogue heavy, and a lot of slowly uncovering things. And this is put in parts, and every part has a distinct purpose. And the last part, like how this was handled, how this all was resolved with the last part, was so well done. I enjoyed that a lot, because halfway through the book it was kind of, okay, murder is solved, right? And then you slowly uncover more and more things because of the patient detective and the very deep digging detective, where you're like, oh, I did not expect that. That is super cool. This has me excited for other Japanese mystery books. I have like 2-3 already on my list that I want to try next, because I think that could be a subgenre that is totally up my alley, and I'm absolutely loving this. Spot 4 and 3, I went back and forth on those two. It's completely interchangeable, if I'm very honest. I love them both equally. They both actually should be on 3rd place. Like, there is no 4th place. They are both on 3rd place. Let's start with 4, which is 3.1 if you want. I don't know. Put it the way you want, which is the Sanyara Chronicles, in particular the Heir Apparent, which is book 2 in the Sanyara Chronicles. So I read book 1 last year, and then at the beginning of this year I pretty much binged book 2, 3, the novella between 3 and 4, and book 4. And book 2, the Heir Apparent, is my absolute favorite in this series. So this is about a young messenger, Ree, who is actually a human, but she lives in the Fae world, where human are kind of outcast. She works really hard, works her way up in the messenger service, and gets to finally deliver some messages outside from the upper realm. Problem is, she runs into an assassination attempt, and instead of letting fate be, she decides to figure out who was trying to assassinate her and why her out of all the people. And that leads her into enemy territory, where she meets a lot of great characters, including this dragon horse. And it's just a lot of fun. It's kind of an adventure, portal fantasy, a bit more lighthearted, but super fast paced with a lot of inspiration from Greek mythology, Norse mythology. There are angels in there. There are dragon horses, pixies, there are assassins. And it's just really cool. There's so much in that series that just keeps you entertained, essentially. And the reason why I put book 2 on my list is because the ending of the book 2 was the coolest twist ever. That twist was like, I was just sitting there slapping my book down. I was like, what just happened? And immediately picked up book 3. I was like, what? Why can you? No. So it was just very cool. It was just very fun. Started the year off right because I read it relatively early in the year. Book 3.2 is Nicolette Andrews' Dragon's Deception, which is book 1 in the Moonlight Dragon series. This is more romantasy series with dragon shapeshifters, or were-dragon rather, which I found really interesting. And I got this book a while ago, and I was expecting a rather romance-heavy story, but I liked the were-dragon theme, kind of. I haven't seen that before, and I was very interested in that. Turns out there's a lot of really cool fantasy elements in here. A lot of, like, backstory to the romance that makes it a lot more than, quote-unquote, just a relationship story, and really turns it into a fantasy-heavy romantasy. So this is Princess Yearn, who, like, her mother is trying to marry her off, but she is just trying to find the killer of her best friend. During her investigation, she is meeting Eric, who is the were-dragon. First, she thinks he is somehow related with the killing of her best friend, but then turns out he's not. I don't want to spoil it what he actually is. And she decides to partner up with him to keep her mother off her back. They're basically pretending to be in a relationship to keep her mother off her back. And he is getting closer to her because he actually needs to get closer to the mother because the mother has something that can help him with his curse. Super cool story. Like, so detailed. So many cool elements in here, from the religious aspects to the political machinations and, where the mother is coming from. Like, there's so much detail and so much thought put into this series. I immediately read book 2 as well. I can't wait for book 3. I already backed the Kickstarter. I cannot wait for this to arrive. I need to know how the series continues. And that were-dragon element, like the reason why I bought this book, is so cool. Like, the way the dragon is hovering underneath Eric and is trying to come out at certain times. It is so well described and so well written. I had so much fun with that. Let's start with book number 2, and that is Divided Allegiance, which is book 2 in the Deeds of Paxenarian series by Elizabeth Moon. My goodness, those are big, long words. Sheep Farmer's Daughter, which is book 1 in the series, was the Backlist Book Club pick of February, and I was really surprised by that. By the way, if you're interested in that, definitely don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I always post what the next month's book is on my YouTube channel, so you can, see if you're interested and join us. Always has the link to the Nico's Discord as well, and we have great conversations there, so just in case, side plug-in. But Divided Allegiance is book 2 in the series. So, Sheep Farmer's Daughter, or the series itself, is about Pax or Paxenarian, who is, surprise, surprise, a sheep farmer's daughter, but she doesn't want to just be married off and end up as a farmer. She wants to be a mercenary. She wants to see the big world, right? Instead of, getting married, which she is in the progress of in book 1, she decides to run away, joins a mercenary group, and then book 1 is essentially like 3 or 4 years of her time in that mercenary group. You're just basically following along with the day-to-day activities. Very plot-driven, not very character-heavy, and even though that's the case, because I'm a very character-driven reader, I love this book already. And it's kind of interesting because it's like kind of a slow, you just follow her, you just roll with it, kind of slow, meandering book. And book 2 is very similar, but both books have like the last, I'd say 15-20% where all of a sudden everything, happens at once and and you're like, what is happening? So you read the ending really, really fast, and then you just sit there and it's like, well, great, now I need to read the next book. And that is in particular a thing on book 2. Like, the ending of book 2, devastating. Like, I put the book down and I could not believe what I just read. Second book where I put the book down and had a very harsh reaction on it. So book 3 is on my this month TBR. I need to figure out how to squeeze this in somehow. So cool. Military fantasy, lots of like D&D type of vibes, very detailed descriptions of military life and horsemanship, and On the surface, it sounds like it's nothing special, but once you get into the story, you're like, oh yeah, this is fantastic, and more people need to read this. This is such a great fantasy series, and I don't know what she could do to ruin this series with book 3. I have a feeling it's also going to be fantastic. And then lastly, my favorite book of the year is a book that I also read relatively early in the year, so it has been sitting with me for quite some time. It has been marinating in my brain for a couple months now, and that is Shazwick of Land, which is the name of the series. Book 1 is Time Becomes Relevant by Kayi Esso. This is a, how do I best describe this? This is an interesting one. This is one of those fantasies that you haven't seen before. So with a lot of these other ones I've mentioned, right, inspiration from this, inspiration from that, there's nothing like this. Is a complete, unique, new type of story that I haven't seen before. There was nothing in there where I was like, oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of X, Y, and Z. Not really. Asian inspired. It has like humans, elves. It has like creatures you haven't necessarily seen before. Dryads. It has gods. It has evil beings. It has relationships, father-daughter relationships, friendships. It has a romantic relationship that is super important in that story. Not a romantasy though, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is about Magnolia, who is half human, half elf. She lives with her elf mother, but one night they are being attacked and the mother is being kidnapped. And to protect her, her human father takes her away, and they are like changing their name and going somewhere to a different country. Fast forward to her teenage years, she's now well established in, like her father too, in the political machinations of the city that they are living in. And then that old evil that kidnapped the mother is kind of steering again, and they now have to figure out what's going on and what are they going to do and how can they solve that. Super slow paced, like it's not an action-packed fast fantasy. It's like slower, a lot of conversations, a lot of just interactions that are very important to the story. And this book literally has been sitting with me since I finished it. Until today, I cannot stop thinking about it. Like every time I look at it, something pops into my head and I just, you know, smile and I'm happy and I'm happy that I read the story. It's such a great story. Oh, and then the magic system is emotion color based. It is so cool. There's so many cool elements in here where you just read it and every time it comes up, you're like, whoa. So yeah, that's my number one. That's my top book of the year so far. A lot has to happen for this one to be kicked off the top one for the rest of the year. I have some great books that I'm super excited to read in the second half of the year. There are a couple of books on my list that might, you know, kick it off top one, but so far this is by far my favorite book this year. That's my top 10 list, my favorite books that I've read so far this year. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite book has been for, or books, if you have multiple, if you can't decide which one your favorite is. I'd love to hear from you. Not that I need more on my TBR, but I clearly need more books on my TBR. Give me all the recommendations. Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Like the video, share it, you know, all the fun stuff. It really helps out and I'm really appreciative for you doing that. And then I'll see you with my next video next week. And until then, have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.